Hi, I'm Darlene Carman, and welcome to the show. Recently, I attended a PowerPoint presentation about native bees by John Kehoe at the Milpitas Library. Prior to that night, the only bees I knew about were honeybees and bumblebees. I had no idea how important native bees are to help produce the fruits and seeds that are not only vital for us, but to nature's wildlife as well. John Kehoe is a longtime member of the California Native Plant Society and the Xerces Society. Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Darlene.
Nice to see you again.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Honeybees have gotten a lot of attention because their numbers are really dwindling. But the native bees really do not receive a lot of press for all of the good work that they do to help with food production.
Right.
So, yeah, you know, it's just, I think a lot of people are just don't know what they are, to be truthful.
Yes.
So please tell us why native bees are important and some of the basic differences between the native bee and the honeybee.
Sure. Well, we all know honeybees and honey. What a lot of people don't know is native bees don't make honey per se, but they use the nectar to feed to their young. And native bees and native plants co-evolved. Therefore, the bee's anatomy and the flower's structure fit like a hand in glove. That means that the bee can cross-pollinate the flowers with great ease. They're very efficient. They can find the plant, they find the flower, pollinate it, get some nectar, go to the next one, and the next, and the next. It only makes sense that the native plants and the native bees would fit like hand in glove. Honeybees, on the other hand, came to us from Europe. They were brought in from European stock. Does that answer your question?
Well, I did a little research myself, and what I found out is that the native bees actually help the honeybees, because something about where the honeybees like to zero in, they have their worker bees that get this type of plant or pollen, and one collects the nectar, and the native bees actually kind of shake them up a little bit and force them to move to other plants, which really help because they want a lot of variety and it helps pollinate. Am I getting close?
You're getting close, yes,
getting
Darlene. With my passion for photography and bees, it's fascinating to watch. I'll have my camera already focused on a plant, and I will see both native bees, especially bumblebees and honeybees, foraging on the same cluster of flowers. And literally, the honeybees get bumped away by the bumblebees, quite literally. It's not a hostile act. It's almost clumsy like Bumble, but it nudges the honeybee away, and with the bumblebee's efficiency and familiarity with that flower, it's usually the female, she gets in there, gets her nectar reward, grabs some pollen, and is gone. The honeybees are still kind of hunting around, searching for that ideal spot. Also, when we have a mixed garden, the native bees will migrate or zoom in on the native plants, and a lot of the exotics that we find in the trades at our local garden centers, the honeybees go there. What we get is native bees pollinating native plants and honeybees pollinating the exotics. It's a win-win for everyone.
Well, the native bees, I also read that, of course, as I mentioned, we know about the dwindling numbers,
Yes.
the collapse of the hives and all that. But I also heard that the native bees are also in trouble for
Yes.
some of the same reasons, because they go along with the honeybees. So a lot of the mites and the diseases that are on the honeybee transfer to the native bees. And then,
Yes.
of course, the loss of habitat.
That's a big
And
one.
I don't know about where you live, but it's not a day goes by that I don't see another yard being torn up and it's replaced with rocks and so forth. And
Yes.
so there's the habitat. We're just losing it. So from what I understand, all of the bees are in trouble, not just the honeybees. Is that right?
That is exactly correct. It's a sad state of affairs when, like you have observed, I have seen it too, where a neighbor, for example, had a nice little garden, whether it had natives or non-natives, it doesn't matter. There was a garden once upon a time, and now there's a concrete driveway because the house was remodeled. That's tragic. But on a positive note, what we are seeing and what the scientists, especially at the University of California school system, the urban bee labs, what they have found is by planting even a few native plants, we can make a big difference in our neighborhood. These bees will find those plants and they'll forage there and they'll live long enough to mate and create the next season's young to repeat the cycle. With dwindling habitat, it's more and more important that what we have does support those bees. And we can do that by planting natives.
Another thing about the bees that I remember is that the honeybees, everyone knows, has the hives with the honey. The native bees, not so much. Some of them are solitary.
Yes.
So they don't necessarily build, well, they don't build, I don't think at all, hives, right? They go underground, and then I heard they go in trees. I have never seen a nest.
Yes.
I don't know what it looks like. I was going to ask you, do they go under bark at all? Bark?
Yes.
Or they have to have dirt?
Well, those are great questions, and I ponder these questions myself. And for the few years that I've been using my close-up lens and looking for bees, I also look for their nest, and I have a very hard time finding them. They're really good at hiding. Bumblebees are the closest related to honeybees in the sense of a hive. They don't make a hive per se, but they live in a colony, and in that colony there'll be a queen, there'll be worker bees, and later on in the season there'll be males that'll be able to mate with reproductive females. That whole colony, that's called an annual colony. That colony dies off at the end of the year, except the newly laid and mated females. They'll be the next year's bumblebees that we see out and about. Most of the bees, though, that we have especially here in the Bay Area, the native bees, do live a solitary life, and some of those will live bored into holes in wood, maybe wood blocks that we drilled with a regular household drill. There are carpenter bees that chew into the wood to build their nest in there. But the majority of our native bees, they burrow into the ground. They live a solitary lifestyle, and their nests can be very deep underground. If it's under the bark, we can't see.
Yeah. From what I understand, nothing is supposed to get under the bark, but no, I have plenty of beetles under there. Let me back up. Did I understand correctly? Are bumblebees a native bee?
Yes, we have many native bumblebees here in North America, especially in California.
And I find this hard to believe, but I also read on several sources that the bees that I see, the honeybees, correct, the honeybees that I see flying around are escape bees from commercial hives. Is that true?
Partially.
Partially.
I live in Sunnyvale, and I know of or have heard of folks who had perhaps a father or even a grandfather that was a beekeeper in Sunnyvale. And as honeybee hives grow and evolve, a split occurs, and part of the hive leaves to create a new hive. Some of those we might say escape, but they're just doing what they do. So a lot of the honeybees that we see out and about maybe escaped in the wild generations ago, and they're doing fine. They could also be, maybe there's somebody in our neighborhood that's doing a little beekeeping and we just don't know about it. I see a lot of honeybees around our neighborhood in Sunnyvale. I don't know where they live, but they don't harm anyone or anybody that I know of or have heard.
Well, there's like over 1,000 different species in California of native bees.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah.
And you have some great pictures of some of the more popular or common types.
Yes.
Great pictures.
Thank you.
So I would like to see some of those pictures now of the native bees.
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah. You can tell us about it.
Great. Well, our opening photo, as you can see, is it's a bumblebee, and that bumblebee is a female. She's hanging on a Manzanita blossom. This is an amazing photo. This is an amazing bee. This photo was actually taken right after Thanksgiving last year. Normally, those bees and those Manzanitas aren't out and about. Well, the Manzanita is generally not in flower that time of year, but for whatever reason, last November, the Manzanitas started to flower. And when I saw that flowering, I thought, wow, what's going to happen with these native bees? I was delighted to find that is a founding black-tailed bumblebee queen. She's a founding queen, meaning she recently emerged from her overwinter hibernation. She was mated last summer, the summer before. She hibernated underground. Whatever triggered her to come out was in sync with the Manzanita blossoming. Her
That's
first
amazing.
job is to go to the Manzanita and to get some nectar. The next picture, if we could get the next picture up. The next picture will be of the Manzanita. There you go. That is the same Manzanita. It's called a sentinel Manzanita.
Beautiful.
And that photo was taken a few weeks later. Now what looks like gravel or little beads
Yes.
all around on the ground below it, those are the flowers that have been pollinated and have dropped off.
Oh, okay.
So in just a few weeks, well, maybe 4 weeks, you can see so many of those blossoms have already dropped, yet there's still a lot there. That means that Manzanita is one of the stellar food sources for the black-tailed bumblebee. If it weren't for that Manzanita, those bees would have struggled.
Wow.
So the
It's
next
a beautiful
photo.
plant.
Yes, thank you.
Beautiful.
Okay, so the first picture was the black-tailed bumblebee. This is the yellow-faced bumblebee. Now, you can't see her face, but trust me, she's got a yellow face. And we know it's a female because those orange sacs are actually moistened pollen that she collected and stuck on her hind legs. And
How does she get that pollen off? I've often wondered, use her mouth or jaws or teeth or what?
Yeah, great question. How does she get it off? She scrapes it off with her mid legs and forelegs, and she'll
Crunch
push
it up.
that into the brood area inside her nest.
Okay.
And she'll have worker bees there with her that will help move that pollen to feed or to set in little brood cells with the eggs.
Okay.
And we notice that Ceanothus blossom there, all those little dots, those raised pollen, those are the stamens and the anthers that are covered with pollen. It just sticks up there as if to say, hey, come and
Yeah.
get the pollen. And
Yeah.
that bumblebee is getting the pollen.
Oh, yes. Very busy.
Very busy. The next photo, this is called a Ray Hartman Ceanothus. It's a Ceanothus like the previous photo, but it's a different species. This is a tree. It's a small tree or a large shrub, depending. This is in our neighborhood. This tree or shrub is a bee magnet. It has both kinds of bumblebees as well as honeybees. And then throughout the flowering season of a few months, we can see all kinds of other insects like flies that look like bees and the large carpenter bees. It is a delight to just see them there. And the fragrance that comes off such a large group of Ceanothus flowers is quite a delight. The next picture, moving on. This is an interesting bee. This is called a carpenter bee. Notice that the hind legs are skinny. We can't tell if this is a female or a male, But if we look at the underside of the abdomen, we see these hairs that face downward towards the plant. That's where the scopa hairs are. That's where the females will collect their pollen. They're called carder bees because the females comb or card the woolly fibers of plant leaves. So they like the leaves. So the next picture. This is it's the same family of bee. This is a small Kylie bee. She's only about maybe not quite as long as a honeybee. And you can see in this picture, the underside of her abdomen there is yellow. That yellow is pollen.
Oh.
That flower that she's on is a hybrid buckwheat flower. And we can tell by the color of her abdomen and the color of those stamens and anthers, she's collecting pollen from that buckwheat. At the moment, though, her face is zoomed in on that blossom, and she's going for a...
It's a great picture.
Thank you. A little drink of nectar. The next picture...
Oh,
okay,
exciting.
so
that's a home.
The leafcutter bees are Kylie, and that's a Kylie bee with a cut leaf piece that she's holding between her mid legs and hind legs. And she is zooming into her little nest, which is right at or near ground level. Those are decorative rocks on the edge of a path.
Yes. They almost look like aquarium rocks.
Yeah, they do, don't they? So she cuts the leaves, hence the name leaf cutter. It's the female that cuts the leaves. And she zooms into her nest, her brood cavity there, and she lines it. Now our next picture is a picture of, this is the leaf from a pink flowering currant. And we can see how perfectly circular that cutting is.
Yes.
That's the hallmark of the leafcutter bee female. That perfect circle cut is what the experts tell us. She'll cut the perfect circle to cap the ends of the cell, and she'll lay an egg, and then she'll cut an oval piece and line the outer part of that cell with the oval. She lays the egg, she adds some moistened pollen with nectar, like a little loaf, if you will, and then she'll take another round piece, seal it, and then another egg, another loaf.
It's like a cocoon thing going on.
Yeah, they're like leafy
it's
cocoons. It's a nest that's like a string of cocoons. If you see them cut open, where these experts actually excavate them and they carefully cut them open, it's
That's
art.
amazing.
So so that's the hallmark of a leaf cutter, the circular or oval cuts at the leaf margin. So the next picture, this is one of the amazing bees. This is one of the large carpenter bees. Our carpenter bees, they are the largest bees in North America. Because they're the largest ones, you can't miss them. They're
hover,
noisy,
right?
They're noisy.
Very noisy.
They look intimidating, but they're really not. And we have two common types of, two different species of the large carpenter bees here, and both of those species, the females, are all completely black.
Wow.
So it's hard to tell just by a photo which species
this looks like it has green on it.
Yeah, now the green that we see over her black coat, that's pollen dust that she picked up along the way.
Oh, yes.
And we can see that her wings are brownish.
Yes.
Another one of the carpenter bees, their wings have a purplish or violet sheen to them.
Neat.
Maybe that's indicative of which species this is. I'm not sure. But what's telling about this photo, she is such a big bee. She can't get into the flower, so she's robbing the nectar. That's why her face is all the way up at the base of the flower. The next picture, this is the Cleveland sage. That is what the Cleveland sage looks like if left to grown to full size. That plant is about 7 feet from one end to the other. So if you're going to plant one of these, and you have the room for it, good for you.
And you don't have to worry about weeds because it'll snuff them out, right?
Yeah, weeds will have a hard time competing
Yeah.
with that one.
Yeah.
The next picture. This is a fascinating bee. It's a digger bee. At a glance, it looks like a blue-eyed bumblebee, but what sets it apart is there's no yellow in the bands. These hair bands are white or maybe ivory color, and our bumblebees do not have blue eyes. This bee is coming into a coyote mint, and coyote mint, in fact, a lot of the mint family plants attract bees mostly for the nectar. The next picture should give us an idea. That's another coyote mint in a different garden setting. So you can see it raises these flowers up on like pom-poms or lollipops that really reach out to the bees and say, come on in, get some nectar. The next picture. This is yet another fascinating kind of bee. At a glance, it looks like a honeybee, maybe, but that stripe pattern on the abdomen there is unusual. The plant is one of the buckwheats. This bee is actually, it's called a polyester bee. That's the female. Called polyester bee because she'll line her nest with a plastic polyester-like material, a resin that she secretes. And that helps protect her eggs from moisture, fungus, etc. She also has a distinctive pointy tail.
Oh, yes, I remember you talking about that in the presentation. But you have to look hard at these things. They fly fast.
They fly fast, they move quick, but having a close-up lens all set is really helpful. The next picture. Okay, it wouldn't be a talk about native plants and native bees without California poppy.
Right.
And what we see here is a small sweat bee. There's a whole bunch of small bees that the common name is just, well, let's just call them sweat bees.
Because he sweats. No.
Very good. No, bees don't sweat. But I thought, what? Sweat bee? Carpenter bees? They kind of like carpenters, leaf cutters? What? No, they're called sweat bees because some of these bees will actually land on people to actually lap up some of their sweat for both the water and perhaps the salts. I have not had that experience, and I've been really close to these bees. But one of the fascinating things to observe, the poppies produce mostly pollen. Native bees go to poppies for pollen, and these bees actually start to almost run around that plant, those anthers there, to get the pollen. In our last photo, there are some poppies in the garden, and you notice that dark dot there at the left.
I do, I see that.
That is a bumblebee going for pollen.
Well, excellent. Those are really great photos.
Thank you.
So now let's see. I went through my garden today, and I pulled out this one.
Yay.
So I would say that this would be from a leaf cutter bee. Is that right?
I would say
and
exactly.
There's your circle thing, and there's your
oval.
Oval.
They're perfect circles, perfect ovals. And they're only at the leaf margin. When we see holes inset from the leaf, it's something else.
Yeah.
But that's a telltale sign that there are leaf cutter bees in your garden.
I did my homework.
You did your homework.
But you know, I did see a bee of some sort, but I'm too slow getting the camera and all that. He was gone, and I was in a hurry, so I didn't get to do it. But the thing is, I know they don't eat the leaves, and I've never seen any native bees, as far as I know, on my roses.
Right.
So is there something about wildflowers that the native bees are attracted to, and they're not necessarily attracted to commercial flowers? Is there something about that?
Yes, part of the co-evolvement of bees and plants, the native plants actually put out almost like road signs, markers that the bees see that we can't. Some of them are seen with ultraviolet light, little indicators to the bees that they can see with their vision that tell them, oh, come here, there's nectar down this path. Also, the ease of which a native bee can find the reward, the nectar, in that flower. Roses often have very showy, lots and lots of petals, and the things that we love about the roses in our garden make it hard for the bees to get to the reward deep down inside.
I'm sorry to rush you. We're just running a
problem.
little bit short of time.
Sure.
So what people can do, obviously, would be to plant some California natives to help the bee. This would be one,
Yes.
which is the...
This is a small Manzanita. Now the Manzanitas are a wide genus of plants, and many different varieties are available in the trade.
This is a shrub, right?
It's considered a shrub, yes.
And, but your variety that you showed was more of a tree, or is that the way you trained it?
We allowed it to grow tall, which is what it wanted to do, and in nature it will do
So that was the same actually as this, it's just older and wiser. No. I'm really running out of time, I'm so sorry. But anyway, this, I just wanted to show some examples.
Yes.
So this would be
This is the Ceanothus.
Yes.
This is a cutting from the actual Ceanothus Ray Hartman that was in front of the house with all of those flowers. This came from that tree. This is October, and that photo was taken probably in February.
And this, I remember you telling me, is a buckwheat.
Yes, that's the
and
California buckwheat.
You love that one.
I love
I'm
this.
sorry to rush you. And this is the sage.
That's one of the sages,
I wanted to ask you about the place that you volunteer at. What is your work there in Santa Clara? It's an open space area that you work. What
Yes.
do you do there?
The area is called Ulistac Natural Area, Ulistac, and it stands apart from the other parks.
We're running out of time. But anyway, what do you do there? You're trying to replant and get rid of the weeds that
we're doing
don't
native
belong
plant
and-
restoration and rebuilding wildlife habitat.
And you have an ebook out.
Yes.
Can we see the cover, please? Cover of the ebook, and people
There
can
it
get it
is.
where?
This Santa Clara Valley Bees abridged edition is offered through the iTunes preview and the iBooks store at Apple.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. I'm
Thank
so
you for
sorry that
having
we
me.
ran out of time. It's a wonderful subject. And so people out there watching the show, you know what to do. Go outside, look around everywhere, and look for bees. Now that you have some idea that they're out there, look for them and plant some stuff for them so they'll be happy, okay? Thanks for watching the show, and watch again.